What if the son from Mortis sent Anakin to the Empire era? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The son stares at the kneeling Anakin and smiles as he watches the turmoil within the young Jedi. But while distraught, he can sense the power radiating from within him.
Do not fear, my friend. What you have seen has not yet come to pass. There may be a chance to prevent this future, but only if you are brave enough to stand against it. I have done so many horrific things. I will do anything to stop that future.
The son smiles and helps Anakin to his feet. He grips his shoulder.
Good. I expect nothing less. There will be time for that. But in the meantime, you must rest.
He taps his forehead, and Anakin falls to the ground, slipping to unconsciousness. The son catches him and carries him to his chambers, letting him rest. The son had seen those same visions as Anakin, but knew the time was not yet ripe to strike. That only leaves Anakin's friends Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. The son hunts them down and eventually kills them. Once they are gone, the son keeps a close eye on the events outside the galaxy, using his powers to monitor the events until he feels a shift of power on Coruscant. The son immediately knows that it is time to strike. He wakes Anakin from his slumber with a single tap of his forehead.
Wake up, Anakin. It is time.
What did you do to me?
The time was not ripe. I simply had to ensure you were kept safe until then.
You kept me here? How long did you keep me in this place?
Oh, about 2 years, perhaps.
2 years? Anakin immediately jumps to his feet, looking around and trying to stand, but the son warns him to take it easy. But Anakin is not so easily cowed, as a dozen thoughts run through his mind. Chief among them are his friends. But the son's face darkens as he shakes his head.
My apologies, but your friends are no more. They perished in the wilds of this world.
The words hit Anakin like a physical blow. He sits down on his bed, the force energies around him swirling. Around him, the ground begins to shake, while pottery and glasses shatter. He lets out a scream that sends out a shockwave which sends the son skidding back a few inches.
Your grief is understandable, but it is wasted here. If you wish to avenge them, then see their mission complete by destroying this Emperor.
Slowly, he composes himself, shakes off his frustration, and glances up to the sun. Without another word, he begins leading the son to their ship. Soon, the two dark side users are off, flying back into the galaxy, but it's far from the galaxy they left. When they return, Anakin tries to contact the Jedi Temple, but receives no response. The military doesn't bring him into the channels of the Grand Army of the Republic. Instead, they are contacted by the Imperial Navy. A chill runs through Anakin's body as he sees his vision come to pass. But the son assures him that this is their opportunity to change things. When they return to Coruscant, they are greeted by Palpatine. Anakin's spine stiffens as he sees Palpatine's face. He's badly disfigured, with burns covering his entire face. But these injuries aren't what shock him. He looks exactly like the Emperor from his visions.
Caution. I sense great darkness in him.
I sense it too. The son disappears into the shadows, just as the Emperor embraces him.
Young Skywalker, I am pleased to welcome you to the new era. There is much to discuss.
What happened to you? What happened here? He takes him by the shoulder and guides him towards his office, where they can speak privately.
It is true. Much has changed since you disappeared. The galaxy is at peace, my boy. The war ended. But within the waning days of the Republic, the Jedi tried to overthrow the Republic. I was left with no choice but to act and crush them.
Anakin struggles to process this. The Jedi? A coup? The Jedi would never... How could this happen?
The power got to them. They've become slaves to their positions. Yoda himself tried to assassinate me, but lucky for me, my guards killed him, though not before leaving these injuries. You were always different, Anakin. Loyal. Strong. I feared you were lost. Together we can rebuild the galaxy. I have a place by my side.
Anakin's expression darkens as he wrestles with his emotions. Palpatine sounds so convincing, and part of him wishes to believe him, but then he feels those visions clawing back, the same visions he saw all those years ago. He recalls the horrible things he did in those dreams, and realizes that Palpatine would have made him do it if he had the chance. You're lying. Anakin ignites his lightsaber and charges. Palpatine snarls as he raises his hands, dark energy crackling. The first blast of lightning arcs out, but Anakin deflects it with his blade. Palpatine ignites his lightsaber and swings at him. The Jedi leaps over the attack and tries to strike at his head. The Emperor sidesteps and comes at Anakin just as he lands down. Their lightsabers clash in a flurry of brilliant sparks. The contrast with the dark energy radiating off Palpatine, lending him strength. Despite his age, he begins to push Anakin back. Seeing this, the Jedi snarls and knocks his lightsaber aside, and rains a few heavy blows at him, his anger building within him and giving him some strength.
It seems I didn't need to corrupt you after all. Look at you. Feel the anger flowing through you.
Anakin's response is another roar and aims another cut at Palpatine's head, but the Sith Lord easily dodges this attack. With this lull, he takes a deep breath and tastes bile in his breath as he feels the dark energies flowing. It is almost intoxicating, giving him a surge of power he's never felt before. Rather than calm himself, Anakin drinks this rage and rushes forward, letting the Force lend him speed. He barrels into Palpatine, who flies back from the attack. He falls to his knees and raises his lightsaber to block his next attack.
Don't be so hasty. That power of yours is untested, but I can teach you everything you need to know.
I have my teacher. Palpatine's eyes go wide before a quick strike from Anakin severs his hand. He loses his head in the follow-up swing. As Anakin deactivates his weapon, he hears the sound of soft clapping and finds the sun looking at him.
Most impressive. But that was the easy part. Now comes the time to claim our spoils.
He gestures towards the vast sprawl of Coruscant. At first, Anakin doesn't want to maintain the Empire, and instead restores the Republic as best he can. But the sun reminds Anakin that the Republic is already rotten to its core. It allowed Palpatine to rise. That is why we must make sure it doesn't happen again. It now has us to watch out for it.
If you truly wish to watch the people and ensure they are well governed, then an empire is the better choice. So rather than watch it from the shadows, you can make all the decisions.
That's a big job for just the two of us.
It won't just be the two of us. I sense others across the galaxy. This empire will not be built on the power of one. Not the power of two, but the power of many.
Over the next few days, the sun uses the dark side of the Force to reach out to the other figures. Maul, Ventress, and all others that are touched by the darkness. The closest of these is Count Dooku, who awaits trial for his involvement in the CIS, but suddenly receives a pardon from Anakin. Although reluctant, the Sun is most insistent. Soon, the others begin to arrive, all staring daggers at one another as they sit across the room from each other.
My friends, you are the dark heirs of the Force. Today is no ordinary day, and our purpose here is no ordinary plan. You've all fought alone, driven by power, by revenge, by a desire to survive in the galaxy. But now you have an unprecedented opportunity. Together, we can reshape this galaxy, not through scattered, solitary ambition, but with the power of a united will.
And are you suggesting that we, who have been set against one another time and time again, should simply join hands?
I hate to admit it, but I agree with Dooku. There's no way I'm joining him.
Same here.
I only ask that you consider what is within your reach. There is an empire that even Darth Revan himself would envy within your reach. Surely that is worth swallowing your pride in accepting this concession. Darth Revan was ruthless, and the Jedi still shattered his empire. What makes you believe we would fare any better? Because Revan fought alone. He lacked unity, and he lacked those who understood both the shadows and the light. Each of you has a piece of the puzzle, something to strengthen this new Sith Empire.
And what, son, would you have us do? Become pawns in another's game? I've walked that path before.
Not pawns, rulers. Imagine each of you with dominion.
Slowly, each Sith bows their head and joins their hands together. The Son watches all this and smiles. Their territories and responsibilities are soon divided up. Maul remains in charge of Mandalore and his League of Neutral Systems, but he also gains dominion over the criminal underworld. Ventress is given the remaining Jedi, and also gains the former Jedi's holdings as she begins recruiting fallen Jedi and younglings to create a generation of Inquisitors. Meanwhile, Anakin is given parts of the Outer Rim, where he is placed in charge of the armies. But before he departs, Anakin does something he wanted to do for a long time. He publicly announces his marriage to Padme. Now, without the Jedi, he can do so publicly. Padme decides to accompany Anakin to the Outer Rim to also help the people there, on the ground. Her experiences with Palpatine have left her disillusioned, and now she simply wants to do something helpful. Lastly, Dooku is given the official title of Emperor due to his decades of political experience. With that comes the Senate and most of the core territories. The Son, meanwhile, is given the title of Advisor, guiding each one in their new role. But he seems to favor Anakin in particular, as he sees him as malleable and most in line with his beliefs. Because of that, he spends most of his time on the front lines, helping Anakin clean up the rebel cells and holdouts who remain. For the first few months, things seem to go well, as the division of the Sith's influence allows them to maintain their power base without running into conflict with each other. A big part of this is Dooku, whose masterful political abilities allow them to gain the Senate's backing. However, he also strengthens their position by training new dark acolytes. Unlike Palpatine, who wishes to follow a strict rule of two, Dooku understands that they cannot rule on their own, and need greater numbers similar to the Jedi. This leaves him working closely with Ventress as they create an army from the ground up. With these new Sith acting as enforcers and governors in some cases, Dooku can now challenge the established elite. Many of Palpatine's allies and supporters are purged, allowing him to begin redistributing the resources of the galaxy to assist systems less fortunate. Maul provides some assistance here, as his armies of pirates and smugglers bring supplies to distressed worlds. At the same time, it allows them to attack rebellious worlds belonging to senators who do not wish to work with them. But while these three begin to bring their empire together, there remain serious obstacles, the biggest being how much they are spending on the military. Dooku's goal is to create a more equal society, but he hardly has the funds to create projects that will benefit them. At the same time, Anakin hardly seems concerned by this at all, as his attention is on crushing rebellion wherever he sees it. The Son has no regard for governance, it seems, as if his only goal is complete chaos, and Anakin is the perfect vessel for it. Unlike the others, he has little inclination for governance, and leaving him alone as the leader of the military allows him to bring out that darkness. Rather than end the war, he seeks to keep the galaxy buried in chaos to grow his power. Having known Sith Lords ruling only add to the people's doubts, fear, and anger. All of that will be his to feed on. For Dooku, he begins to sense this trouble. Despite being named Emperor, he finds his efforts paralyzed by military spending, and all his suggestions to Anakin fall on deaf ears. To his surprise, he finds an unlikely ally in Padme, who expresses her worry about Anakin. Although they started to improve their lives, Anakin's dark powers consumed him, leaving him only focused on crushing their enemies, even if it meant neglecting the people. This prevents people from actually receiving the help they need. Dooku closes his eyes to get some rest, but feels a cold breeze washing over him. When he looks around, Obi-Wan stands before him.
I come with a warning, Dooku. Your alliance with the Sun, it's a path to ruin.
A Jedi warning me of ruin? I thought your meddling days were over, Kenobi.
Dooku, listen. The Sun, he's a monster, bent on destruction. He cares nothing for this galaxy. He is turning Anakin into a monster and killed me to do it.
How do you know I am not using him?
Because you are not a fool. He cannot be controlled, but he can be stopped. A weapon from Mortis. The Mortis dagger. It's the only thing that can end his darkness.
With that, Obi-Wan's ghost fades, leaving Dooku alone to think on it. He announces he will take a few days and leaves the running of the government to his aides. Meanwhile, Dooku ventures towards the ruins of Mortis, following Obi-Wan's instructions. He finds the tomb just as Obi-Wan promised, and heads down to retrieve the dagger. But as he reaches out for it, he feels a cold presence swirling around him, and lunges forward just as the sun appears before him. He smirks and catches his lightsaber with the Force, directing it towards the floor and punching him.
So, Dooku, you would betray me already. I expected more from my new Emperor, and yet you played your role so well, Dooku. Such a dutiful servant. But I can't let you have the dagger.
The sun lunged while Dooku was off balance. Thinking quickly, the Count unleashes a burst of Force lightning. While the sun stumbles from the attack, he keeps going, shrugging it off, and rushes at him. Dooku barely rolls aside as the blow cracks the floor he's standing on. His eyes widen as he tries to launch a counterattack, striking quickly with his lightsaber. Most of his attacks miss as the sun redirects them before grabbing him by the throat and lifting him. As his vision begins to dim, Dooku hears the sounds of lightsabers igniting. Ventress appears.
Looks like you could use a hand, Dooku.
So the outcasts join forces. Fitting, but you cannot fight me alone.
Who said anything about alone?
Suddenly, a dozen shadowy figures appear and ignite their lightsabers, revealing the forms of Ventress's Inquisitors. The sun chuckles and readies his lightsaber as they rush at him. The first few are easily cut down, but as the rest surround him, their lightsabers flash and score a few minor cuts. This is enough to knock him off the ground as they swarm him. This gives Dooku a chance to crawl away as Ventress helps him to his feet. The remaining Inquisitors are cut down or form a rear guard and allow the pair to retreat through the woods. The Inquisitors are close behind, trying to buy them time. But the sun moves like a nightmare, slicing through the remaining Inquisitors before they can even relax. But it is too late. As the last one falls, the pair escapes aboard their ship, which begins to fly off.
What did you even come here for?
Dooku produces the dagger from the folds of his robe.
It is the one weapon that can kill him. How did you find me?
Skywalker's brat. She came to me in a vision, saying there was something here. Seems I'm not the only one who doesn't trust the sun. I suppose my experience served me well.
You realize this means we are now setting ourselves up against Skywalker too.
I do. Which is why we need Maul if we're to succeed.
So, to Mandalore it is.
Yet on their journey there, it seems like Anakin has been making moves too, as they see on the HoloNet.
People of the Empire, it has come to my attention that Count Dooku has been kidnapped by the criminal Maul, who seeks to undermine our order. I assure you this menace will be dealt with. The criminal underworld will be crushed under my heel.
Kidnapped by Maul? Looks like your empire needs a scapegoat. Seems he's learned from you.
Funny, but it will be less amusing if he takes over.
Agreed. Let's just finish this and go back to hating each other in our own corner of the galaxy.
Sounds good.
But as they enter Mandalore's atmosphere, blaster fire and explosions erupt all around them as Anakin's fleet bears down on Sundari, while Maul's forces, criminals and loyal Sith, try to hold back the legion of stormtroopers. This gives them perfect cover as they sneak into the center of the plaza, where Maul is battling against Anakin. The latter has the upper hand, swinging his lightsaber and lashing out against them, leaving Maul barely able to avoid them. Ventress and Dooku rush forward, the former rushing out and locking blades with Anakin, giving Maul a chance to recover. Dooku rushes past him as he prepares to join the fray, but the shadows gather around him as the sun materializes before him, smiling coldly.
I suppose it wouldn't be fair if I didn't join in the fun.
A lightsaber appears in his arms, Palpatine's lightsaber. Taking a deep breath, Dooku prepares himself for the battle. He then springs forward, unleashing a flurry of attacks using his old lightsaber techniques. The sun parries these first attacks, prompting Dooku to speed up, letting his momentum carry him and striking again and again. But the sun is equally graceful, sidestepping each attack and redirecting it. He suddenly twists out of the way and directs Dooku's lightsaber onto the railing. As he tries to pull out, the sun elbows him and sends the Count sprawling. Meanwhile, Ventress dances around Anakin, lashing out with her lightsaber and quickly retreating. This gives Maul a chance to come from behind and send Anakin stumbling forward.
Anakin, listen to me. Sith masters. They always betray their apprentices. Dooku did the same with me. Don't make the same mistake I did.
I'm no one's apprentice. He rushes forward and gives a vicious overhand swing, but manages to sidestep Maul's next attack. As the two circle around him, they ready their weapons, staring at the determination in Anakin's eyes.
You truly believe that? How sad.
They both rush forward, raining attacks down on Anakin, but the general doesn't falter. Instead, he meets both attacks head-on, spinning and whirling each time they try to flank him. Rather than slowing down, Anakin remains as focused and skilled as ever. Soon, it is Maul and Ventress who begin to slow down. As the crime boss whirls his lightsaber and strikes the ground around him, Anakin leaps back and thrusts his lightsaber, cutting his cheek. When Ventress swings from behind, Anakin narrowly ducks under her swing. He punches her in the gut and throws her over his shoulder. Anakin tries to bring his lightsaber down, but Ventress rolls out of the way.
You're being deceived. He's lied to you about everything.
Save your breath.
It's the truth, Anakin. He killed Ahsoka and Obi-Wan. He's the one responsible for their deaths.
Anakin's anger falters, his eyes widening in shock. The horror of the revelation takes root, and his stance wavers. He can see the sincerity in her eyes, and before he can react, Maul comes from behind and slams into him, sending him sprawling on the ground. The sun stands with a cruel smile, darkness swirling around him, as if he's drawing the very shadows to his command as he looms over Dooku. He sends dark tendrils to lash out at him, and even though the Count's technique remains flawless, his speed is not what it once was. Every wave allows a few more to get through, striking at his sides, arms, and legs. This slowly saps his strength as the sun blocks any sort of counterattack. As he feels the tendrils slackening, Dooku rushes forward, sword thrust out before him. The sun smirks and redirects it with his hand, but this time Dooku is prepared. He unleashes a barrage of force lightning against a nearby tree, setting it alight. The burning embers rain down on the sun, who gasps and tries to block the fire. This allows Dooku to slash him across the side before he's shoved away. The sun stares furiously, but his attention is taken away by Ventress and Maul, who rush in. Her lightsabers whirl in a flurry of red and white, trying to break through the sun's defenses. Maul joins in, his double-bladed saber spinning like a storm. The sun's movements are fluid, yet unnaturally fast, blocking and sidestepping their strikes. His hands surge with dark energy, and with a flick, he sends a shockwave hurling Ventress back. Dooku moves in next, joining Maul in an attempt to keep the sun from focusing on Ventress. Maul's aggression balances Dooku's precision, and the two cover each other, giving the sun a struggle. But then the Mortis god summons a shadowy whip that lashes out at Dooku. Dooku barely dodges, the whip grazing his arm and leaving a burning trail of dark energy. Maul tries to stab at him, but the whip finds his cheek as Ventress leaps over, using her acrobatics to strike at him from the air. The sun catches Ventress's saber mid-air, stopping it inches from his face. Then Maul comes in from the side and drives his lightsaber into one leg. This finally brings him to his knees. The three rush at him, but he waves his hand and throws them back with the Force. But as they fall to the ground, a single shape emerges. Anakin rises to his feet, snatching the Mortis dagger from Dooku's side, and holds it out.
You took everything from me.
They were obstacles, ones that needed to be cleared for you to rise. I did you a favor.
Anakin's response is to snarl as he rushes at him, blade flashing as he aims the strike at his side. But Anakin scores a shallow wound, one that leaves the son's skin steaming. Snarling in pain, he swings his lightsaber, but Anakin catches it with the Force, holding it up and then sending it skittering aside. He slams the son back against the tree and then pulls him back, right into the dagger. The son's eyes widen as he stares down at the weapon buried in his stomach. He can only watch as his body dissolves into nothingness. With the sun destroyed, the four of them can reassert control of the Empire. But seeing the destruction Anakin caused, he voluntarily retires from his position as Supreme Commander. Instead, he refocuses his efforts on finding and recruiting new apprentices, balanced in the Force using both light and dark. He makes his home in the former Jedi Temple, where he begins to train them. Meanwhile, without Anakin, Dooku can take control of the war effort and begin reducing their spending. This allows him to refocus and rebuild the Outer Rim. Ventress and Maul continue their roles as well, serving as loyal parts of the Empire. With their control established over the military, underworld, government, and the Force, a new era of the Sith has dawned on the galaxy. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.